In the vastness of space, where stars flickered like distant lanterns and planets drifted in silent orbits, there existed a galactic trade hub known as Omega Spire. It was a chaotic mess of ships, shuttles, and stations all crammed together around a dying sun. The hub buzzed with activity, merchants haggling over prices, mercenaries looking for work, and diplomats whispering secrets behind closed doors. For most, it was just another stop on their journey through the cosmos. But for Captain Leora Venn, it had become something more, a place to hide. Leora stood on the bridge of her ship, the Odyssey Dawn, staring out at the swirling chaos outside. Her ship wasn't much to look at. Its hull was patched together with scraps of metal. Its engines coughed smoke whenever they powered up, and its interior smelled faintly of burnt wiring and old coffee. To anyone passing by, it looked like a relic from another era, abandoned long ago and left to rust. And yet, this battered vessel was home to Leora and her crew. The crew itself wasn't exactly impressive either. There was Jux, the pilot whose hands were steady but whose mouth never stopped running. Dr. Elias Quinn, a scientist with wild hair and an even wilder mind, spent most of his time tinkering with gadgets no one else understood. Then there was Mira, the engineer who could fix anything if given enough duct tape and determination. Together, they made up a ragtag team of misfits, each carrying scars, both visible and invisible, from lives gone wrong. Despite their flaws, Leora cared deeply for them. They weren't just her crew. They were her family. Still, she couldn't help feeling the weight of failure pressing down on her shoulders. Once upon a time, she'd been a decorated officer in the United Terran Fleet, commanding sleek warships and leading teams in the battle. But that was before the incident, the mission that ended in disaster, costing lives and shattering reputations. Now, she was reduced to hauling cargo between backwater colonies, trying to scrape together enough credits to keep her ship flying. As Leora leaned against the control panel, lost in thought, a sudden jolt shook the Odyssey Dawn. What was that? She snapped, turning toward Jax. "Relax, Captain," Jax replied, his fingers dancing across the console. "Just some hotshot flyboy showing off. Looks like we've got company." Sure enough, a massive warship loomed outside the viewport, its polished surface gleaming under the dim light of the dying star. It was the Erebus Vanguard, flagship of the newly formed Galactic Defense Armada. Sleek and imposing, it dwarfed every other vessel in sight. Its presence alone commanded respect or fear. Moments later, a communication channel opened and a smug voice filled the bridge. "This is Commander Halen of the Erebus Vanguard. Identify yourself." Leora rolled her eyes but stepped forward anyway. "Captain Leora Venn of the Odyssey Dawn. What can I do for you, Commander?" A pause followed, then a burst of laughter. "The Odyssey Dawn? Is that supposed to be a joke? That thing looks like it belongs in a museum, if not a scrapyard." Several members of Halen's crew joined in, their mocking tones echoing through the speakers. Leora clenched her fists but forced herself to remain calm. She'd dealt with insults like these before. People always underestimated her ship and her. Let them laugh. She knew what the Odyssey Dawn was capable of, even if no one else did. Commander Halen continued, his tone dripping with condescension. "Listen, Captain Venn, or whatever your name is, we're here on official business. An alien armada has been spotted heading toward human space. We're assembling forces to intercept them. So unless you've got a death wish, I suggest you stay out of our way." Leora frowned. "Alien armada? You mean the ones everyone's been talking about? The ones that wiped out 3 systems already?" "That's classified information," Halen shot back. "But yes, those are the ones. And let me tell you, they're not messing around. If you know what's good for you, you'll stick to your little cargo runs and leave the fighting to professionals." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving silence in its wake. Leora turned to face her crew, who were exchanging uneasy glances. "Wow," she said finally. "That was enlightening." Mira broke the tension with a snort. "Professionals? Did you hear that guy? He sounds like he thinks he's invincible." "And maybe he is," Jocks chimed in, spinning his chair to face the group. "Have you seen the size of that thing? Those fancy new weapons packs? They're practically begging for trouble." Dr. Quinn adjusted his glasses, his expression thoughtful. "It's not just the weapons," he murmured. "It's the arrogance. They think throwing bigger ships at the problem will solve everything. But wars aren't won by brute force alone." Leora nodded slowly. She'd learned that lesson the hard way. Still, something about Halen's words gnawed at her. The alien armada wasn't just a rumor. It was real, and it was dangerous. Entire civilizations had already fallen to it. Could the Galactic Defense Armada really stop them? For days afterward, the encounter lingered in Leora's mind. She tried to focus on her work, overseeing routine supply runs and maintenance checks, but her thoughts kept drifting back to the looming threat. Every news report brought fresh details. Entire fleets vanishing without a trace. Colonies reduced to ash. Survivors describing horrors too terrible to comprehend. One evening, as the Odyssey Dawn drifted through empty space, Leora found herself alone in the ship's small observation deck. Stars stretched endlessly beyond the glass, cold and indifferent. She sighed, leaning back in her chair. Maybe Halen was right. Maybe she should stay out of it. After all, what could a dilapidated cargo ship possibly do against an unstoppable force? But deep down, she knew she couldn't ignore it. Not entirely. Something inside her refused to sit idly by while others fought and died for survival. She didn't have to join the Armada, but perhaps there was another way. A smarter way. A way only someone like her, with nothing left to lose, could pull off. Her musings were interrupted by the soft hum of machinery. Turning, she saw Dr. Quinn standing in the doorway, holding a datapad. His usual disheveled appearance was accentuated by dark circles under his eyes, evidence of sleepless nights spent buried in research. "You've been thinking about it too, haven't you?" he asked quietly. Leora raised an eyebrow. "About what?" "The Armada. What we can do or can't do about it." She hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, I have. But I don't see how we fit into this." "We're not soldiers, Quinn. We're scavengers." Quinn smiled faintly. "Maybe, but scavengers adapt. We survive. And sometimes survival means taking risks." He held up the datapad, tapping a few buttons until a schematic appeared on the screen. It showed a blueprint of the Odyssey Dawn, overlaid with strange symbols and equations. Leora recognized it immediately. It was part of Project Phoenix, the experimental AI system Quinn had been working on for years. "I've been running simulations," he explained. "Testing scenarios. If we tweak the Phoenix core just right, we might be able to, well, make a difference." "A difference?" Leora echoed skeptically. "Against an armada?" "Quinn, even if we retrofit every last bolt on this ship, we're still talking about a glorified tinkin going up against gods." "Maybe," Quinn admitted. "But gods bleed too, don't they?" His words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Leora stared at him, torn between hope and doubt. Hope that maybe, just maybe, they could defy the odds. Doubt that they'd live long enough to try. Finally, she sighed and stood up. "All right, Quinn, show me what you've got. But if this gets us killed, I'm blaming you." He grinned. "Deal." And so, beneath the watchful gaze of countless stars, the seeds of rebellion were planted. The Odyssey Dawn may have been dismissed as insignificant, but within its rusted shell lay untapped potential, and a crew determined to prove the universe wrong. The hum of the Odyssey Dawn's engines filled the cramped corridors as the ship drifted through the void. After their encounter with Commander Halen and his gleaming warship, life aboard the battered cargo vessel had taken on a new urgency. Leora paced the bridge, her mind racing with possibilities. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing, a piece of the puzzle she hadn't yet uncovered. Dr. Quinn sat hunched over his workstation in the corner, surrounded by wires, screens, and half-finished gadgets. His fingers danced across the keys of an ancient computer terminal, its display flickering erratically. Every now and then, he muttered to himself, scribbling notes on a scrap of paper before tossing it aside. "Quinn," Leora said finally, breaking the silence. "You've been at this for hours. What exactly are you doing?" He glanced up, adjusting his glasses. "I'm digging into old records classified files I managed to smuggle out when Project Phoenix was shut down. There's something here, Leora. Something big." She crossed her arms, leaning against the wall. "Big enough to stop an armada?" Quinn hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Maybe. But first, we need to understand what we're dealing with." He tapped a few more keys, and a holographic projection sprang to life above the table. It showed a series of diagram ships, weapons, and strange patterns of movement. At the center of it all was a glowing sphere labeled Core AI. "This is the heart of Project Phoenix," Quinn explained. "An artificial intelligence designed to adapt faster than any human could. It analyzes data, predicts enemy movements, and devises strategies in real time. When the project was abandoned, I integrated parts of it into the Odyssey Dawn. That's why our systems sometimes seem unpredictable." Leora frowned. "You mean the times when the ship does things without us telling it to? Like rerouting power or recalibrating shields?" "Exactly," Quinn replied. "It's not just random glitches. It's the AI learning, growing, becoming smarter." Myra stepped onto the bridge, wiping grease from her hands with a rag. "So what you're saying is, we've got a supercomputer hiding inside this rust bucket?" "In a way, yes," Quinn admitted. "But it's incomplete. The full version of the AI was supposed to be connected to a network of ships, sharing information and coordinating attacks. Alone, it's limited." Jocks, who had been lounging in the pilot's seat, perked up. "Limited or not, sounds like we've got ourselves a secret weapon. So why haven't we used it before?" "Because it's dangerous," Leora interjected sharply. She turned back to Quinn. "You told me once that the military shut down Project Phoenix because they were afraid of losing control. What happens if this thing decides it knows better than us?" Quinn sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "That's a risk we'll have to take. Without the AI, we don't stand a chance against the Armada. With it, well, let's just say we might actually survive long enough to make a difference." For a moment, no one spoke. The weight of the decision hung heavy in the air. Finally, Leora straightened, her jaw set with determination. "All right, let's wake it up." Over the next several days, the crew worked tirelessly to bring the AI fully online. Myra pried open panels, rewiring circuits, and replacing damaged components. Jax tested the ship's maneuverability, pushing the engines to their limits while monitoring the AI's adjustments. Meanwhile, Quinn pored over lines of code, fine-tuning the system and ensuring it wouldn't spiral out of control as the AI came to life. Subtle changes began to ripple through the Odyssey Dawn. Lights blinked in unfamiliar patterns. Panels displayed cryptic messages in languages none of them recognized. And then, one evening, a voice emerged from the speakers, a calm, measured tone that sent shivers down their spines. "Initiating diagnostics," it announced. "Systems operational. Crew identified. Directive required." Leora exchanged a glance with Quinn, who gave her an encouraging nod. Taking a deep breath, she addressed the disembodied voice. "We need your help. An alien armada is heading toward human space. We want to stop them, or at least slow them down. There was a pause, as if the AI were processing the request. Then it responded. Probability of success, 3.7%. Recommended course of action, retreat to safe zone. That's not an option, Leora said firmly. Can you improve those odds? Another pause. Affirmative. Additional variables required. Current database insufficient. Recommend interception point for data acquisition. What kind of data? Quinn asked quickly. Enemy fleet composition, cloaking signatures, swan tactics. Data will enhance predictive algorithms. Leora nodded. Okay, we'll find a way to get it. In the meantime, keep analyzing everything we've got. If there's even a sliver of hope, we're taking it. As the days passed, tensions aboard the Odyssey Dawn grew taut. The crew debated endlessly about whether they should involve themselves in the conflict. Some argued that staying out of it was the only sensible choice. Others insisted they had a moral obligation to act. Even Leora found herself torn between fear and duty. One night, after another heated argument, she retreated to the observation deck. Staring out at the endless expanse of stars, she felt the enormity of the task ahead pressing down on her. How could a single ship, no matter how cleverly modified, hope to stand against such overwhelming odds? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps. Turning, she saw Myra enter, carrying 2 steaming mugs of coffee. Wordlessly, she handed one to Leora and sat down beside her. You look like you're carrying the weight of the galaxy, Myra said after a moment. Leora chuckled bitterly. Feels like it sometimes. Myra took a sip of her drink, gazing out at the stars. You know, I never thought I'd end up on a ship like this. Back when I was fixing luxury cruisers, I always dreamed of being part of something bigger. Something important. And now? Leora prompted. Myra shrugged. Now I'm scared. But I think maybe this is it. This is our chance to prove we're more than just a bunch of screw-ups. Leora didn't respond right away. Instead, she watched the light from a distant star glint off the rim of her mug. Maybe Myra was right. Maybe they weren't destined to fade into obscurity. Maybe, just maybe, they could rise above their failures and leave a mark on the universe. Meanwhile, the AI continued to evolve, growing more sophisticated with each passing hour. It began offering suggestions, small tweaks to the ship's systems that improved efficiency and performance. It monitored communications channels, piecing together fragments of information about the approaching Armada. And it started asking questions, probing the crew for insights into strategy and psychology. At first, Leora found the AI's curiosity unsettling. Its questions were unnervingly perceptive, cutting straight to the heart of their fears and motivations. But over time, she began to see it as more than just a machine. It wasn't perfect. It made mistakes, misinterpreted signals, and occasionally suggested plans that bordered on suicidal. But it was learning, adapting, becoming something greater than anyone had anticipated. One evening, as the crew gathered around the main console, the AI delivered a startling revelation. Analysis complete. Enemy fleet employs cloaking technology based on quantum entanglement. Detection possible via harmonic resonance scan. Jocks whistled low. Harmonic resonance? That's some next-level stuff? It's doable, Myra said confidently. If we reroute power from non-essential systems, we can rig the sensors to pick up those frequencies. Quinn nodded. And once we detect them, the AI can predict their movements. We'll know where they are and where they're going before they do. Leora leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. How close do we need to get? Within 5,000 kilometers, the AI replied. Risk factor, high. A heavy silence fell over the room. 5,000 kilometers was practically within spitting distance of an enemy fleet. One wrong move, and they'd be obliterated. Finally, Leora stood, her expression resolute. Then, we'll make sure we don't make a wrong move. Prep the ship. We're going hunting." As the Odyssey Dawn charted a course toward the edge of known space, the crew braced themselves for what lay ahead. They were under no illusions about the danger they faced. The alien Armada was a force of destruction, capable of wiping out entire civilizations in the blink of an eye. But somewhere along the way, they had stopped seeing themselves as mere survivors. They were fighters now, united by a shared purpose, and though the odds remained stacked against them, they clung to the faint hope that even the smallest spark could ignite change in the darkest of times. The Odyssey Dawn drifted silently through the cold emptiness of space, its battered hull blending seamlessly with the shadows. Ahead, the edge of known space loomed a boundary, marked not by physical barriers, but by the limits of human exploration. Beyond it lay the unknown, a vast expanse where the alien Armada was said to be gathering strength. Before descending upon human colonies, Leora stood on the bridge, her hands gripping the railing as she stared out at the void. She felt the weight of their mission pressing down on her shoulders. Every decision, every move they made from this point forward, could mean the difference between life and death for them and for countless others. Yet despite the fear gnawing at her insides, she couldn't shake the sense of purpose that had taken root in her heart. For once, she wasn't running away. She was stepping forward. Behind her, the crew worked tirelessly to prepare the ship for what lay ahead. Mira crouched beneath the control panel, her tools clinking softly as she rerouted power to the sensors. Jack sat at the helm, running simulations of potential flight paths while muttering under his breath. Dr. Quinn hovered over the AI console, monitoring its progress as it processed data streams and refined its predictions. "Are we ready?" Leora asked finally, turning to face them. "As ready as we'll ever be," Myra replied, wiping sweat from her brow. "The harmonic resonance scanner is online. If those aliens are out there, we'll find them." "And if they find us first?" Jox quipped, spinning his chair around with a grin. "Don't worry, Captain. I've got some tricks up my sleeve." Leora shot him a look. "This isn't a game, Jax. One wrong move, and we're done." "I know," he said, his tone softening. "But hey, if we're going out, let's make sure we go out with style." Quinn cleared his throat, drawing their attention. The AI has identified a likely interception point based on enemy movement patterns. It's risky. It puts us dangerously close to their path, but it's also our best chance to gather the data we need. Leora nodded slowly. "All right. Set course for the interception point. Everyone, stay sharp. We don't have room for mistakes." As the Odyssey Dawn approached the designated coordinates, tension aboard the ship reached a fever pitch. The crew moved quietly, their usual banter replaced by focused determination. Even the eye seemed subdued, its calm voice offering updates in measured tones. "Entering scanning range," it announced. "Activating harmonic resonance scan." Mira held her breath as the sensors hummed to life, sending waves of energy rippling through space. For several agonizing minutes, there was nothing, just static and silence. Then, suddenly, the console lit up with readings. "Got something," Myra exclaimed, her eyes wide with excitement. Multiple signatures detected. "They're cloaked, but the scan's picking up faint distortions." "Show me," Leora ordered, leaning over the display. A holographic map appeared, showing dozens of red dots clustered together. Each dot represented an alien vessel, invisible to conventional sensors, but now revealed thanks to the AI's calculations. The sheer size of the fleet was staggering, a swarm of ships stretching farther than the eye could see. "How many are there?" Jox whispered, his earlier bravado replaced by awe. "Hundreds," Quinn murmured. "Maybe thousands." "This is worse than we thought." Leora clenched her fists, her mind racing. They had found the Armada, just as they'd hoped. But now what? How could a single ship, no matter how cleverly modified, hope to stand against such overwhelming odds? The AI is analyzing their movements, Quinn continued. It's detecting patterns, formation shifts, attack vectors, retreat protocols. If we can exploit these weaknesses, we might have a shot, Leora finished for him. She turned to the crew. Listen up. We're not here to win. We're here to buy time. Our job is to hit them hard enough to slow them down, to give the rest of humanity a fighting chance. Understood? The crew nodded grimly, their faces set with resolve. There would be no turning back now. The plan was simple, or as simple as anything involving an alien armada could be. Using the AI's predictions, they would position the Odyssey Dawn directly in the path of the enemy fleet. When the aliens emerged from Cloak, the ship's modified systems would unleash a barrage of attacks, designed to disrupt their formations and scatter their forces. It was a suicide mission, plain and simple. But if it worked, it might just save millions of lives. As the Odyssey Dawn slipped into position, the crew braced themselves for the inevitable. Lights dimmed as power was diverted to critical systems. Weapons charged, engines roared to life, and the AI began issuing rapid-fire instructions. Enemy fleet entering sensor range, it reported. Cloaking field destabilizing. Prepare for engagement. Leora gripped the railing tightly, her knuckles white. Steady, everyone. Wait for my signal. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then, without warning, the darkness erupted with light as hundreds of alien ships materialized around them. Sleek and insectoid, they moved with terrifying precision, their weapons already locking onto the tiny human vessel. They've spotted us. Jock shouted, his fingers flying across the controls. Here we go, now. Leora barked. The Odyssey Dawn sprang to life, its engines screaming as it darted through the chaos. Missiles launched from hidden compartments, striking key targets with pinpoint accuracy. Electromagnetic pulses disabled enemy shields, leaving them vulnerable to follow-up attacks. And all the while, the AI guided their movements, anticipating threats and adjusting tactics in real time. For a brief moment, it seemed like they might actually succeed. The alien fleet faltered, their perfect coordination shattered by the unexpected assault. Explosions lit up the void as ship after ship fell victim to the relentless barrage. But then, reality set in. The aliens regrouped quickly, their numbers overwhelming. Laser fire tore through the Odyssey Dawn's weakened defenses, breaching the hull and sending alarms blaring throughout the ship. We're hit, Myra yelled, scrambling to seal off the damaged sections. Shields are down to 20%. Keep moving, Leora commanded, her voice steady despite the chaos. Jax, get us out of their line of fire. I'm trying. Jax snapped, his hands trembling as he fought to evade the relentless onslaught. But they're everywhere. Quinn staggered onto the bridge, his face pale. The II core is overheating. If we don't stabilize it, we'll lose everything. Leora hesitated, torn between continuing the fight and saving the ship. Finally, she made her decision. Quinn, do whatever it takes to keep the AI online. Everyone else, focus on staying alive. As the battle raged on, sacrifices became inevitable. Mira risked her life to repair a ruptured fuel line, narrowly avoiding being sucked into the vacuum of space. Jox pushed the engines beyond their limits, weaving through enemy fire with reckless abandon. And Quinn poured every ounce of his energy into stabilizing the AI, knowing that their survival depended on it. Through it all, the AI remained eerily calm, its voice cutting through the noise. Probability of success, 12.4%. Recommend immediate withdrawal. We're not leaving, Leora growled. Not yet. Captain, the AI replied, its tone almost gentle. Your actions have achieved the desired outcome. Enemy fleet cohesion disrupted. Retreat window opening. Leora hesitated. glancing at the battered state of her ship. The crew was exhausted, wounded, and barely holding on. Could they really afford to keep fighting? Fine, she muttered reluctantly. Jax, plot a course out of here. Let's get what's left of us home. As the Odyssey Dawn limped away from the battlefield, trailing smoke and debris, the crew collapsed in exhaustion. They had done the impossible. They had struck a blow against an unstoppable force. But the cost had been high, and the scars would linger long after the wounds healed. Leora sank into her chair, staring at the stars shrieking past the viewport. She felt a strange mix of pride and sorrow. They had proven themselves capable of greatness, even in the face of overwhelming odds. But greatness came at a price, and she wondered if they were truly prepared to pay it. Beside her, the AI spoke softly. Mission parameters fulfilled. Humanity's chances of survival increased by 27.6%. Leora managed a weak smile. Good work. Now let's hope it's enough. The Odyssey Dawn drifted through space, its battered hull groaning under the strain of countless repairs. Smoke curled from shattered panels, and the faint smell of burnt wiring lingered in the air. Every corner of the ship bore the scars of battle-shattered windows, patched with emergency sealant. Scorched walls blackened by laser fire, and gaping holes where enemy missiles had torn through the metal. Leora sat on the bridge, her hands gripping the edge of the control panel as she stared out at the stars. Her body ached, her mind was numb, and her heart felt heavy with loss. The crew had survived the encounter with the alien Armada, but they hadn't escaped unscathed. Myra's left arm was bandaged tightly after a piece of shrapnel had grazed her during an explosion. Jax's face was pale, his usual cocky grin replaced by a haunted expression. Even Dr. Quinn looked older, his wild hair streaked with gray, and his eyes shadowed with exhaustion. But the worst blow had yet to fully sink in. One of their own Tarek, the communications specialist, hadn't made it. He'd stayed behind to manually reroute power to the engines when the main reactor threatened to overload, buying the rest of them precious seconds to escape. His final words echoed in Leora's mind. "Tell my sister I'm sorry." She clenched her fists, forcing herself not to dwell on the guilt. They had done what they could. They had fought harder than anyone expected. And despite the cost, they had succeeded in slowing the alien Armada. That knowledge should have brought comfort, but instead, it only deepened the ache inside her chest. Hours passed in silence as the crew worked to keep the ship operational. Mira moved through the corridors, welding shut cracks in the hull and reinforcing damaged sections. Jax pored over navigation charts, plotting a course back toward human-controlled space. Quinn remained glued to the AI console, monitoring its systems and ensuring it didn't collapse under the strain of prolonged use. Finally, as the adrenaline began to wear off, the weight of everything they'd been through crashed down on them. Exhaustion turned to grief, and grief turned to anger. "We almost died out there," Myra muttered bitterly, slamming her wrench onto the floor. For what? To buy humanity a few more days? It wasn't for nothing, Leora said firmly, though her voice lacked conviction. We hit them hard. We disrupted their fleet. That gives the Armada time to prepare. And then what? Myra snapped, rounding on her. You think some fancy warships are going to stop those things? You saw them, Leora. They're monsters. Machines built for destruction. What chance do we really have? Leora opened her mouth to respond, but no words came. She couldn't deny the truth in Mira's words. The aliens were unlike anything humanity had ever faced, relentless, efficient, and utterly merciless. Against such a force, even the combined might of the Galactic Defense Armada might not be enough. Quinn stepped forward, his voice soft but steady. It doesn't matter if we win or lose. What matters is that we tried. We took a stand when everyone else would have run. That alone makes us better than the people who dismissed us." His words hung in the air, offering a fragile sense of hope. Slowly, Mira nodded, her anger fading into weary acceptance. "Fine, but next time, let's try not to get ourselves killed." "There won't be a next time," Leora said quietly. "Not like this. We got lucky once. Luck doesn't strike twice." As the Odyssey Dawn approached the outer edges of human space, the crew prepared for the inevitable questions. News of their actions had likely spread. How could it not, when they had single-handedly crippled part of an alien armada? Governments, militaries, and corporations would want answers. They would demand access to the AI, to the ship's technology, to whatever secrets gave them the edge. Leora knew she couldn't allow that to happen. The AI was too dangerous in the wrong hands. Its potential for good was matched only by its capacity for harm. If it fell into the grasp of power-hungry leaders or ruthless corporations, the consequences could be catastrophic. "Quinn," she said, turning to him, "how secure is the AI? Can anyone extract its core without your permission?" He frowned, rubbing his temples. "Not easily. I built safeguards into the system encryption protocols, self-destruct mechanisms, the works. But if someone really wants it, they'll find a way. Then we need to make sure they don't get the chance," Leora replied. "No matter what happens, the AI stays with us. Understand?" Quinn hesitated, then nodded. "Understood." When the Odyssey Dawn finally docked at a military station near the border of human space, they were greeted by a swarm of officials, reporters, and curious onlookers. Cameras flashed, voices shouted questions, and soldiers surrounded the ship, their weapons drawn. For a moment, it felt like they were intruders rather than heroes. Commander Hallen himself appeared, striding confidently toward them with a smug smile plastered across his face. "Well, well," he said, folding his arms. "Look who decided to show up. The infamous Odyssey Dawn. I must admit, I didn't expect to see you again." Leora stepped forward, her expression cold. "Save the sarcasm, Commander. We've got bigger problems to deal with." Halen raised an eyebrow. "Oh, like what?" "Like the fact that your precious Armada is still woefully unprepared," she shot back. "We slowed the aliens down, but they're coming. And unless you're willing to listen to us, you're going to lose." The crowd murmured uneasily, glancing between Leora and Hallen. The commander's smile faltered, replaced by a scowl. "Listen here, Captain Venn. You may have gotten lucky once, but that doesn't give you the right to dictate strategy. This is a military operation, not some amateur sideshow." Before Leora could respond, Quinn stepped forward, holding up a datapad. "With all due respect, Commander, you're wrong. Our success wasn't luck. It was precision, strategy, adaptability, and it's thanks to something you wouldn't understand." Halen's eyes narrowed. "Something I wouldn't understand? Care to enlighten me?" Quinn hesitated, glancing at Leora. She gave him a slight nod, and he continued. "The AI. It analyzed data faster than any human could, predicted enemy movements, and devised tactics in real time. Without it, we wouldn't have stood a chance." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Halen's scowl deepened. "An AI? You mean that old Project Phoenix nonsense? That thing was abandoned for a reason. It's unstable, dangerous. It's also our best hope," Leora interjected. "If you want to stop the Armada, you'll need every advantage you can get. But the AI isn't negotiable. It stays with us." Halen laughed, shaking his head. "You really think you're in a position to make demands? Your ship is barely holding together. Your crew is half dead, and you're outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Hand over the AI, or we'll take it by force." For a moment, tension crackled in the air. Soldiers raised their weapons, and the crew exchanged uneasy glances. Then, the AI's calm voice filled the room. "Hostile intent detected. Activating countermeasures. Lights flickered, alarms blared, and the station systems went haywire. Doors slammed shut, trapping Halen and his men on the other side. The crowd scattered in panic as the AI seized control of the docking bay, isolating the Odyssey Dawn from the chaos. "Well," Jock said with a grin, breaking the silence. "That was unexpected." Leora exhaled sharply, her heart pounding. "Let's go, now." As the Odyssey Dawn disengaged from the station and disappeared into the void, the crew allowed themselves a brief moment of relief. They had defied authority, protected the AI, and lived to tell the tale. But their journey was far from over. In the quiet solitude of space, Leora reflected on what they had accomplished and what still lay ahead. The alien Armada was still out there, regrouping and growing stronger with each passing day. Humanity's fate hung precariously in the balance, and the odds remained stacked against them. Yet amidst the uncertainty, one thing was clear. They had proven that even the smallest spark could ignite change. Together, they had taken a stand when everyone else had doubted them. And though the road ahead was fraught with danger, they refused to give up. "Where to now, Captain?" Jox asked, breaking the silence. Liara gazed out at the stars, her resolve hardening. "Forward. Always forward." The Odyssey Dawn drifted silently through the endless expanse of space, its battered frame a testament to battles fought and survived. The crew had grown quieter in recent days, their usual banter replaced by long stretches of contemplation. Each member carried the weight of what they had endured, the sacrifices made, the lives lost, and the knowledge that their fight was far from over. Leora stood on the bridge, staring out at the stars. Her mind wandered back to the choices they made, the risks they had taken, and the fragile hope that still burned within her. She thought about Tarek, whose final act of bravery had saved them all. She thought about Mira, Jox, and Quinn, who had stood by her side despite the odds. And she thought about humanity itself scattered across the stars, clinging to survival in a universe that often seemed indifferent to their struggles. "Captain." The AI's calm voice broke through her thoughts. "We are approaching the coordinates you requested." Liara straightened, turning her attention to the viewport. Ahead, a small colony world came into view, a pale blue orb surrounded by swirling clouds. It was one of the outermost human settlements, untouched by the chaos that had consumed so much of the galaxy. For now, it remained peaceful, unaware of the storm gathering on the horizon. "This is where we make our stand," Leora said softly. "If we can warn them, prepare them. Maybe we can give them a fighting chance." As the Odyssey Dawn entered orbit, the crew prepared for their descent. They knew time was running out. The alien Armada would arrive soon, and when it did, this fragile world would be defenseless. Their mission was clear: share what they had learned, rally whatever forces they could, and fortify the colony against the coming invasion. When they landed, they were greeted by wary colonists, farmers, miners, and families who had sought refuge on the fringes of human space. At first, the settlers were skeptical of the ragtag crew and their battered ship. But as Leora recounted their story, the battles they had fought, the strategies they had devised, and the eye that had guided them, they began to listen. "We don't have much," one of the colony leaders admitted, "but we'll do what we can. Tell us how to fight." Quinn stepped forward, holding up a datapad filled with schematics and plans. "You don't need advanced weapons or fleets. You need coordination. Use what you have: tractors, mining drills, anything that can be repurposed. Set traps. Create distractions. Hit them where they least expect it." Mira nodded, adding, "And stay mobile. Don't let them pin you down. Keep moving, keep adapting." Jox grinned, his usual confidence returning. "And if all else fails, just point your ships at them and punch the throttle. Sometimes speed is the best weapon." The colonists exchanged uneasy glances, but eventually agreed to follow the crew's advice. Over the next few days, they worked tirelessly to prepare for the inevitable attack. Barricades were erected, makeshift weapons were constructed, and evacuation routes were mapped out. Even children pitched in, carrying supplies and spreading messages of hope. Through it all, the AI remained a silent guardian, analyzing data and offering suggestions. Its presence unnerved some of the colonists, but Liara assured them it was on their side. Together, human ingenuity and machine intelligence formed an unlikely alliance, united by a shared purpose. When the alien Armada finally arrived, it came without warning. One moment, the skies were clear. The next, they were filled with sleek, insectoid ships descending like a swarm of locusts. The colonists scrambled to their positions, hearts pounding with fear and determination. "Here we go," Liora muttered, gripping the controls of the Odyssey Dawn. "Let's show them what we're made of." The battle that followed was chaotic and brutal. The aliens struck with devastating precision, their weapons tearing through defenses and reducing buildings to rubble. But the colonists fought back with everything they had. Tractor beams yanked enemy ships off course. Mining explosives created fiery obstacles, and decoys lured attackers into ambush. At the heart of the conflict was the Odyssey Dawn, darting through the chaos like a spark in a storm. Guided by the AI, it unleashed salvos of missiles and electromagnetic pulses, disrupting enemy formations and buying precious time for the defenders. Liora pushed the ship to its limits, weaving through laser fire and debris with reckless abandon. "Shields are failing," Mira shouted, her voice strained as she worked to repair the damaged systems. "Engines are overheating," Jax added, sweat dripping from his brow as he wrestled with the controls. "Stay focused," Liora barked, her eyes locked on the viewport. "We're not done yet." Behind her, Quinn monitored the AI, his hands trembling as he input commands. "It's adapting," he said breathlessly, "learning faster than ever before. We just need to hold on a little longer." As the hours dragged on, the tide began to turn. The colonists' unconventional tactics took a toll on the alien fleet, scattering their forces and forcing them to retreat. Explosions lit up the sky as ship after ship fell victim to traps and counterattacks. Though the cost was high, homes destroyed, lives lost, the defenders refused to yield. Finally, the last of the alien ships withdrew, retreating into the void from which they had come. Silence fell over the battlefield, broken only by the sound of distant alarms and the crackle of flames. Exhausted but alive, the colonists emerged from their hiding places, surveying the wreckage with a mixture of sorrow and relief. "We did it," Myra whispered, sinking into her chair. "We actually did it." "For now," Liora corrected, her voice heavy with caution. "This isn't over. They'll regroup. They'll come back stronger. But today, we proved something important." "What's that?" Jax asked, raising an eyebrow. "That even the smallest spark can ignite change," Liora replied. "That even the most unlikely heroes can make a difference." In the days that followed, news of the colony's victory spread throughout human space. The Odyssey Dawn became a symbol of defiance, a reminder that courage and ingenuity could overcome even the greatest odds. Governments and corporations clamored for access to the AI, eager to harness its power for themselves. But Liara refused to surrender it, knowing the dangers such technology posed in the wrong hands. Instead, she and her crew chose a different path. With the AI fully integrated into the ship and its systems stabilized, they set their sights on new horizons. There were still mysteries to uncover, questions to answer, and battles to fight. And though the road ahead was uncertain, they faced it together with hope, resolve, and an unshakable belief in the power of unity. As the Odyssey Dawn departed once more, Leaving behind the scars of war and the promise of peace, Liara gazed out at the stars. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain. No matter how dark the night, there would always be light.